I was abandoned 5 days after I was born. But for some reason, my biological mother left me on the doorstep of a local criminal organization in Ravenwood City to survive. Even while still in my swaddling clothes, I instinctively cried, "Dad," when a group of hardened criminals glared down at me. The rough men instantly frowned. Maybe we should keep this kid. From then on, I gained 108 dads. But our home was truly a den of outlaws. Every single one of them was on the most wanted list. So to avoid causing trouble for my dads, I lived a low-key life for over a decade. That was until high school when I encountered school bullying. Tiffany, the queen bee, and her cronies cornered me in the restroom, splashing me with cold water, tearing my clothes and even filming me with her phone. "Why are you staring, you scholarship student? How dare you glare at me?" But they hit me so hard that I grabbed her, and we fell from the 3rd floor. When I woke up, the teacher in the nurse's office was scolding me. "He hit you? So you tried to kill her? Is that it? You're absolutely vicious. Call your parents immediately. I want to see how your parents raised you." My hair stood on end. I meekly asked, "Miss Davison, are you sure you want to call my parents?" As soon as the words left my mouth, a sharp slap echoed. Mr. Albright, Tiffany's father, struck me across the face, his eyes burning with menacing fury. "You brat, you will call your parents to apologize to me." I was instantly knocked to the ground, half my face throbbing with pain. Miss Davidson, however, acted as if she hadn't seen a thing. She immediately fawned over Mr. Albright, nodding and bowing. "Mr. Albright, please rest assured. The school will handle this very seriously and show no leniency." She turned to me, yelling directly into my face, "Stella, look what you've done to Tiffany. Call your parents right away to pay for her medical expenses." I hung my head, my nails digging deep into my palms. A metallic taste of blood spread in my mouth. No, it was Tiffany. She was the one who first cornered me in the restroom, splashed me with cold water and tore my clothes. But I couldn't finish my sentence. Tiffany started to cry weakly from her hospital bed. "Dad, she's lying. I was just passing by." And Stella suddenly went crazy and pushed me down the stairs. "She's just a scholarship student, jealous that our family has money. She's always hated me, it was clearly you." I immediately retorted. But Miss Davidson didn't give me a chance to speak. "Shut up, Stella. The facts are clear, you deliberately hurt her." She grabbed me and dragged me out of the medical room, roughly pulling out my phone. Miss Davidson slapped it against my face. "I don't want to hear your nonsense now. Immediately call your parents. Tell them to get over here and pay up." The gaze of various teachers and students in the hallway focused on me, a mix of curiosity and shock and fright. But I clutched the cold phone, staring at the bustling contact list. Yet I couldn't bring myself to make the call. I had 108 dads, but Dad 1 was a syndicate boss. Dad and 3 smuggled weapons. Dad 15 lent out high-interest loans. And Dad 78 ran an illegal casino. Though they always loved to give me black cards and then pat my head, saying, "Stella, don't stir up trouble out there. But if anything happens, always come to us. If anyone lays a finger on you, one will make their whole family disappear from the face of the earth. Right? Anyone who dares to make you suffer, Dad 3 will come for them with a pair of knives." But they were all Ravenwood City's most wanted criminals. A shiver ran through me. I remembered them always leaving early and coming home late, her bodies covered in knife scars and the smell of blood, grumbling about running into the cops again that day. I remembered the news channels, constantly featuring their wanted posters. I couldn't risk putting them in danger. Looking up again, I tried one last struggle. "Miss Davison, my dads. They're all working out of town. Very far away, they can't come. Could we? I'll write an apology. I'll apologize publicly, I'll accept a disciplinary record. Anything, just please don't call them, okay?" Miss Davidson let out a sneer. "Working out of town? No wonder you turned out to be such a shameless child. And they can't come, Tiffany's medical exams. Her emotional distress, compensation. That's a lot of money, can a kid like you pay for it? Call them quickly, don't waste my time. She looked at me with utter contempt. How much money I can? I was about to say. I could pay for it myself. As my dad's had given me black cards I hadn't even touched. But Mr. Albright emerged. And immediately handed Miss Davison a bank card. Miss Davison, here's 50,000. It's a donation for the school. My demand is simple. Get her parents here to compensate us and admit guilt. Otherwise, I'll just call the police. I'll charge her with aggravated assault. Once she has a criminal record, she can forget about ever going to college. On seeing the bank card, Miss Davison's eyes instantly lit up. She turned to me, her tone becoming incredibly stern. Stella, did you hear that? This is your last chance. Either call your working-class parents now to pay and apologize. Or get a criminal record. And forget about ever going to college for the rest of your life. Criminal record, those two words felt like needles piercing my mind. Couldn't have a criminal record. I still wanted to go to college to earn money. And support my dads in their old age. Looking at that bank card. Looking at Miss Davison's snobbish, ugly face, tears instantly welled up in my eyes. My trembling fingers finally lit up my phone screen. Miss Davidson, please don't. Don't call the police, I'll call my parents. My hand trembled as I tapped Dad one at the top of my contacts. Although he was a syndicate boss, he was still the most normal among all my dads. I hoped he could pretend to be an ordinary person and get through this. Beep, the call was answered. The moment it went through, Dad one's warm, smiling voice came from the receiver. Stella, Dad one. I said, pressing my lips together. The teacher wants me to ask you to come to school. I go to school, he instantly sounded excited. Oh, is my daughter winning another award? This is the first time you've asked me to come get a certificate. Wait up, I'm coming now, no. A pang of sadness hit me, I was about to say no. But then, a clear gunshot suddenly rang out from the other end of the line, followed by a strange man's scream and a series of dull thuds. I froze instantly, I faintly heard a very soft clean it up. Childhood memories flooded back. Bad one always came home with blood on him. But he would lie and say it was ketchup. His breathing seemed a little unsteady. But when he spoke, to me again, his voice was still gentle. Know what, sweetie? Thinking about whether he was doing something dangerous. Whether he was hurt, my heart pounded. The words on the tip of my tongue hardened into nothing. It's fine, I can get the award myself. You're busy, I'm hanging up. Hey, you didn't even say anything. Why are you hanging up? Hearing this, Miss Davidson shouted and reached for my phone. I instinctively dodged, quickly ending the call. But the next second slap, another harsh slap landed on my face. Miss Davidson's face was distorted with rage. You've caused such big trouble. And you're still trying to hide it from your parents. Mr. Albright slammed his hand against the wall, pointing at my nose and yelling. Don't think you're getting away with this by hiding it from adults. I'm telling you, in this part of Ravenwood City, I'm the local big shot, I have connections at the police department. If you dare touch my daughter, I'll make your whole family of working-class nobodies disappear. In a minute, Tiffany limped out mocking me. You're so pathetic you don't even dare call your parents. I bet your family is too poor to put food on the table, right? So where did you get the guts to push me? So ridiculous, I lowered my head. My voice is faint as a mosquito's hum. My dads really can't come. I'm sorry, Tiffany. It was my fault, I shouldn't have pushed you. I can bow down and apologize to you in front of the whole school. Be your errand girl for a year or you can hit me back. Please don't call the police, okay? I don't want to get expelled. Tiffany scoffed contemptuously. But Mr. Albright roared and reached for my phone. You're trying to negotiate now. Give me your parents' number. I'll talk to them myself, Mrs. Davidson immediately chimed in. Stella, give Mr. Albright your phone to call. Don't resist. You need to show an attitude of wanting to solve the problem. The man lunged forward to snatch it. But I clung to my phone, backing away repeatedly. Finally, I stumbled and fell awkwardly to my knees. My knees hit the cold tile floor, making tears stream down my face from the pain. But I kept bowing, begging, please. Please don't involve my dads, Tiffany. Please, I'll do all the apologizing and making amends. I just mentioned you can hit me back. Just please don't call my parents, okay? Dull thuds echoed on the floor, as I bowed repeatedly until blood smeared my forehead. Only then did a look of triumphant pleasure appear on Tiffany's face. Dropping her dad, she raised her voice. All right, then just apologizing in public isn't enough. Tomorrow you'll have to bow 100 times, touching your forehead to the ground until I'm satisfied. Only then will I not call the police, okay? Clenching my fists, I agreed to all her conditions. My heart bled with humiliation, but I felt it was worth it as long as my dads weren't implicated. But that evening, when I returned to the small apartment Dad too rented for me, wearing a baseball cap and feeling exhausted, I saw 3 men bustling around in the kitchen cooking. It was Dad 66, Dad 79, and Dad 93. Seeing me return, they immediately gathered around me happily. Stella's home at the dining table. Dad 66 smiled and pinched my cheek. Stella, I heard you're getting an award at school. Why didn't you let one of us go get it for you? By my calculations, it should be my turn, right? Dad 79 skillfully massaged my shoulders. Refuting him nonsense, it's my turn. Dad 93 pushed a bowl of soup in front of me. Drink up, it's good for your brain. You'll get into a great college. My nose stung and I almost cried. But I forced a smile and explained it's just a small award. No need to trouble yourselves. I'll call you for the big awards next time, all right? We won't argue, you eat first, sweetie. They excitedly served me food. As I was eating, Dad 66 suddenly looked serious and answered a phone call. I faintly heard a few words. That shipment being watched again jumped into the river. Damn, this money is really hard to earn. Instantly, my heart tightened again, fearing they would be arrested. I took a deep breath and put down my fork. Dads could do you in the future. Stop doing that kind of work. I'm grown up now, I'll get into a good college and support you. So could you get some stable jobs? The 3 big men froze simultaneously and overcome with emotion. They hugged each other and cried, promising they would, 2 hours later. The 3 of them gave me a few more instructions, left me 3 black cards and then left in a hurry. I stood at the door watching them disappear down the hallway. My eyes stinging, remember to change jobs. We know, but the moment the door closed, Dad 66 looked at his brothers beside him, puzzled. Strange, our daughter doesn't like my nuclear submarine development. The other 2 also looked bewildered. And as I closed the door, I looked at the My Family 108 group chat on my phone. The messages were already 9.99 plus. My dads were all asking, is Stella tired from studying today? Do you have enough money? Don't skip. I have plenty of money, my eyes welled up again. I sniffed and finally typed a line in the chat box. Fine, everyone. Don't worry, dads. You're busy with work, please also pay attention to safety. Send the next second. Staring at the constantly popping up messages of concern on the screen, I made up my mind, I would never cause my dads any more trouble. Stella, you must hold on. Everything will be fine after the SAT. The next morning, the sky over Ravenwood City was the color of bruised iron. I stood in front of the cracked bathroom mirror, my fingers trembling as I dabbed thick layers of cheap concealer over the dark, swollen contusion on my forehead. My cheeks still bore the faint, red outline of Miss Davidson's hand. Just get through today, I told my reflection, biting my lower lip until I tasted copper again. Just 100 bows, you can do this, keep them safe. When I arrived at Ravenwood High, the atmosphere was suffocating. The moment I stepped through the main gates, the whispers hit me like physical blows. Students pointed, snickered, and pulled out their phones. That's her, the psycho scholarship kid. I heard she threw Tiffany down the stairs because she was jealous of her designer bag. Mr. Albright is furious, he's making her do a public apology at the morning assembly. I kept my head down, clutching the straps of my worn backpack. Inside my pocket sat the 3 heavy, metallic black cards Dad 66, Dad 79, and Dad 93 had given me the night before. I had no idea how much money was on them. I always assumed it was their hard-earned, dangerous money, blood money. I swore I would only use it to pay off Tiffany's extorted medical bills so they wouldn't go to the police. The loudspeakers crackled to life. All students and faculty, proceed to the main auditorium immediately for a mandatory disciplinary assembly. Stella Vance, report to the backstage area. Miss Davidson's voice echoed through the halls, dripping with venomous authority. My stomach plummeted. I dragged my feet toward the auditorium. Backstage, the scene was set for my execution. Tiffany was sitting in a top-of-the-line motorized wheelchair, her leg wrapped in a pristine, perfectly white cast that looked suspiciously clean. She was reapplying lip gloss. When she saw me, she smirked, handing the mirror to one of her cronies. Look who decided to show up, Tiffany mocked, batting her eyelashes. I was worried you'd run away back to the slums. Mr. Albright stood next to her, dressed in a sharp, expensive suit, checking his Rolex. Miss Davidson was hovering beside him, holding a clipboard and looking like a loyal dog waiting for a treat. Ah, the little delinquent, Mr. Albright sneered, stepping into my personal space. The scent of his expensive cologne made me nauseous. I hope you've practiced your form. I want to hear your forehead hit the stage floor. If I don't hear a thud, it doesn't count. First things first, Miss Davidson snapped, holding out her hand. The compensation, $50,000. You said your parents couldn't make it, but I assume they at least scrounged up the money? If not, the police are waiting right outside the campus gates. I reached into my pocket with a shaking hand and pulled out one of the black cards Dad 66 had given me. It had no bank logo, just a sleek matte finish with a strange golden crest in the corner. Miss Davidson snatched it, her face twisting in disgust. What is this? An arcade VIP card? Is this a joke to you? It's a bank card, I whispered, my voice hoarse. There should be enough on it. Please, just swipe it. Mr. Albright scoffed loudly. A matte black card? Who do you think you're trying to fool, kid? Only billionaires and state heads carry unbranded black cards. You probably bought this piece of plastic off the internet. Miss Davidson, go run it at the finance office terminal. When it declines, I'm calling the chief of police. Right away, Mr. Albright, she sneered, glaring at me. Don't move, you're going on stage in 3 minutes. As she marched away, I closed my eyes, praying to whatever higher power was listening that the card would work. Unbeknownst to me, 20 miles away in the underground command center of the Aegis Syndicate, a name that sent shivers down the spines of global leaders, a very different kind of assembly was taking place. Dad 1, Arthur Pendleton, sat at the head of a massive obsidian table. He was a man whose mere name could crash the stock market or end a small war. The syndicate I thought he ran was actually the world's most elite shadow government and intelligence network. The smuggled weapons Dad 3 dealt with were state-of-the-art military defenses supplied to the Pentagon. The illegal casino Dad 78 ran was the global financial exchange. They weren't Ravenwood's most wanted criminals, they were the people who wrote the most wanted lists. Arthur's face was terrifyingly calm, but the temperature in the room was sub-zero. Beside him stood Dad 42, the world's premier cyber warfare architect, typing furiously on a holographic keyboard. Play it again, 42, Arthur commanded, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. Arthur, we've analyzed the background audio of the call Stella made to you yesterday, Dad 42 said, his fingers flying. I isolated the audio from the moment you heard the gunshot on our end. You assumed she hung up out of fear for your safety, but the microphone didn't cut out immediately. Listen. The audio played over the command center's speakers. My fragile, trembling voice echoed in the silent room. It's fine, I can get the award myself. You're busy, I'm hanging up. Then, Miss Davidson's screech, hey, you didn't even say anything. Why are you hanging up? Then, a sharp, violent smack. The sound of a heavy hand striking skin. A collective, deadly silence fell over the 100+ men in the room. Dad 3, a heavily scarred military titan, snapped the titanium pen he was holding cleanly in half. The audio continued, Mr. Albright's roaring voice, don't think you're getting away with this. I'll make your whole family of working-class nobodies disappear in a minute. Then, my desperate, sobbing voice, accompanied by the dull thuds of my knees hitting the floor, please don't involve my dads, I'll do all the apologizing I can, bow down, just please don't call the police. When the audio file ended, the silence in the room was apocalyptic. Dad 66, the lead developer for the nation's nuclear defense program, stood up. He was trembling, not from fear, but from a rage so profound it seemed to warp the air around him. She told us she won a small award, he whispered, his voice cracking. She told us to get stable jobs so we wouldn't get hurt. She was protecting us. Someone, Dad 3 said slowly, drawing a pair of customized trench knives and slamming them into the obsidian table, hit our daughter. Someone, Dad 15, the ruthless overlord of global finance, adjusted his glasses, his eyes gleaming with murderous intent, called us working-class nobodies and threatened to make us disappear. Arthur Pendleton stood up. He didn't yell, he didn't break anything, but the look in his eyes made even the most hardened assassins in the room take a step back. 42, track her location, Arthur ordered. She's at Ravenwood High, and Arthur, a security alert just tripped on the financial grid. Someone at the high school just tried to run one of the Aegis Centurion cards on a standard merchant terminal. The system flagged it because a standard terminal doesn't have the $1 billion clearance required to read it. Mobilize, Arthur said softly, all of you, bring the guard, call the mayor, call the governor, shut down the airspace over Ravenwood City. Dad 3 yanked his knives from the table. What's the rules of engagement? There are no rules, Arthur replied, walking toward the armory doors. They wanted to see her parents. Let's go to school. Back in the auditorium, the heavy velvet curtains pulled back. The blinding stage lights hit my face, forcing me to squint. Below me, a sea of 2,000 students and teachers sat in the darkness, their faces illuminated by the glow of their smartphones. They were all recording. Miss Davidson pushed me forward by my shoulder. Go on, the microphone is on. I stumbled to the center of the stage. Behind me, Tiffany rolled out in her wheelchair, looking like a tragic victim, while Mr. Albright stood tall, crossing his arms with a look of supreme superiority. Quiet down. Miss Davidson barked into the mic. Today, we address a severe breach of our school's code of conduct. Stella Vance, a scholarship student who has clearly taken our charity for granted, committed a vicious, unprovoked attack on Tiffany Albright. Boos and jeers erupted from the crowd. Someone threw a crumpled piece of paper that hit my shoulder. Mr. Albright has graciously agreed not to press criminal charges, provided Stella demonstrates true remorse. Miss Davidson continued, her voice echoing, begin, Stella. I looked out at the sea of judging eyes. My chest felt hollow. I thought of Dad 1's gentle smile, Dad 60's terrible cooking, Dad 93's warm soup. If I had to trade my dignity to keep them out of a jail cell, it was a cheap price. Slowly, agonizingly, I lowered myself to my knees. The hard wooden stage dug into my bruises. Speak into the mic. Mr. Albright snapped. My voice shook. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I am sorry, Tiffany, I was wrong. I placed my hands on the floor and bent forward, pressing my forehead against the cold wood. 1, Tiffany said into her own microphone, her voice dripping with glee, a little louder next time, beggar. I sat up, my vision blurred with unshed tears. I bowed again, my forehead hitting the floor with a soft thud. 2, Tiffany mocked, keep going, 98 left. I raised my head for the third bow. But before I could bend down, a sound interrupted the assembly. It started as a low, rhythmic vibration that rattled the loose floorboards of the stage. Thump, thump, thump. Students stopped murmuring and looked up at the ceiling. The vibration escalated into a deafening roar. The massive stained glass skylights of the auditorium began to shake violently. Dust cascaded from the rafters. What is that noise? Miss Davidson shrieked, covering her ears. Screech! Outside, the screeching of tires and the blaring of heavy sirens drowned out everything. Through the high side windows, the flashes of red and blue police lights painted the auditorium walls, mixed with the blinding white searchlights of military-grade helicopters hovering directly over the building. Helicopters? Mr. Albright muttered, his arrogant facade slipping into confusion. What's going on out there? Suddenly, the heavy double oak doors at the back of the auditorium exploded inward. The entire student body screamed, ducking under their chairs as a thick cloud of dust billowed into the hall. Through the settling dust, a phalanx of men in heavily armored tactical gear poured into the room, their assault rifles lowered but ready. They formed 2 perfect, terrifying lines down the center aisle. Miss Davidson dropped the microphone, shrieking in terror. Mr. Albright went pale, instinctively stepping behind Tiffany's wheelchair. Then, footsteps echoed through the silent, terrified hall, slow, deliberate, heavy footsteps. From the dust, a man emerged. He was dressed in a bespoke, immaculate black suit, a long, dark cashmere overcoat draped over his broad shoulders. His silver-streaked hair was slicked back, and his eyes, cold, sharp, and possessing the weight of an empire, locked directly onto the stage. It was Dad 1, Arthur. Behind him, an endless stream of imposing men walked in. Dad 3, wearing his general's combat uniform, a burning cigar clamped between his teeth, his hand resting on the hilt of a custom blade. Dad 15, in a 3-piece tailored suit, casually adjusting his gold-rimmed glasses while typing on a tablet. Dad 66, Dad 79, Dad 93, all of them, all 108 of my dads, each radiating an aura of absolute, suffocating power. They didn't look like wanted criminals hiding from the police, they looked like gods of war and titans of industry descending upon a mortal realm. My breath caught in my throat. Dad? I whispered, the word barely audible, but in the dead silence of the room, it carried. Arthur's cold eyes softened for a fraction of a second when he saw me on my knees, but when he saw the red, swollen bruise on my forehead and the thick concealer trying to hide the slap mark on my cheek, the temperature in the auditorium seemed to drop below freezing. Get up, Stella, Arthur commanded. His voice wasn't loud, but it resonated with an authority that compelled the very air to obey. I scrambled to my feet, my legs shaking. Mr. Albright finally found his voice, though it cracked pathetically. Who are you people? This is private property. I'm warning you, I am a close personal friend of Mayor Higgins and Police Chief Barrett. I'll have you all arrested. Arthur ignored him entirely. He walked up the steps to the stage, the wood groaning beneath his expensive leather shoes. The tactical guards had already secured the perimeter, ensuring no one could leave. Arthur stopped in front of me. He reached out with a large, warm hand and gently touched the unbruised side of my face. "You didn't call us," he said softly, a heartbreaking mix of sadness and pride in his voice. "You let them hurt you, to protect us." "Dad, you have to run." I choked out, tears finally spilling over. "The police, Mr. Albright said he has connections. They're going to arrest you all." "I was just trying to keep you safe." Behind Arthur, Dad 3 let out a booming, humorless laugh that echoed like cannon fire. "Arrest us? Sweetheart, the police are outside setting up a perimeter for us." I blinked, confused. Arthur turned around, shielding me behind his broad back. He looked down at Mr. Albright, Miss Davidson, and Tiffany. His gaze was like a physical weight pressing them into the floor. "You," Arthur said, his voice a lethal whisper, pointing at Mr. Albright, "you wanted to see her parents, you wanted us to come and compensate you. We are here." Mr. Albright swallowed hard, his eyes darting frantically between the armored guards and my dad's. He tried to puff out his chest, clinging to his local authority. "So what if you're her family?" Albright shouted, his bravado returning slightly as he assumed they were just some organized gang putting on a show. "Do you think a bunch of thugs scares me? I run Albright Enterprises. I control half the real estate in Ravenwood. Miss Davidson, call Chief Barrett right now." "There's no need to call him," Dad 15 said mildly, stepping up to the stage. He tapped the screen of his tablet. "Chief Barrett is currently indisposed. He was fired exactly 4 minutes ago for corruption. As for Mayor Higgins..." Dad 15 snapped his fingers. 2 guards dragged a man in a disheveled suit into the auditorium and threw him to the floor at the base of the stage. The students gasped. It was Mayor Higgins. He was weeping, his hands zip-tied in front of him. Mr. Pendleton." Mayor Higgins sobbed, pressing his face to the floor. "I swear to God, I had no idea Albright was harassing your daughter. If I knew, I would have killed him myself. Please, show mercy." Mr. Albright stumbled backward, hitting Tiffany's wheelchair, the blood completely drained from his face. His jaw slackened. The mayor of Ravenwood City, a man Albright spent millions bribing to get close to, was groveling like a dog before my dad won. "Mayor, what are you doing?" Albright stammered. Who are these people?" "You fool." Higgins screamed at him, his face purple. "That's Arthur Pendleton, the chairman of the Aegis Syndicate. He owns the banks that fund our state. He owns the defense contractors. You signed your own death warrant." "Aegis Syndicate?" My mind spun. The syndicate Dad 1 ran wasn't a local mafia? It was Aegis? The mega conglomerate that the news said controlled 40% of the global economy? Miss Davidson let out a strangled squeak and dropped to her knees. Her arrogance had entirely evaporated, replaced by raw, primal terror. Dad 15 adjusted his glasses and looked at his tablet. Marcus Albright, CEO of Albright Enterprises, net worth roughly $40 million, quite the big shot. Dad 15 smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Tell me, Marcus, have you checked your stock prices in the last 5 minutes? Albright fumbled for his phone with shaking hands. He unlocked it, and his eyes bulged out of his skull. No. This is impossible." Albright screamed. "I shorted your stock, bought out your suppliers, and called in all your bank loans," Dad 15 said conversationally. "As of 60 seconds ago, Albright Enterprises is bankrupt, your assets are frozen, your house is currently being foreclosed, you are legally entirely destitute." "Dad?" Tiffany whimpered, looking at her father's hyperventilating form. "Dad, what does he mean?" "Tell them to stop." "And as for your medical compensation," Dad 93 stepped forward. He was the world's most renowned surgeon and head of the Global Medical Association. He pulled a file from his coat and tossed it into Tiffany's lap. "I hacked the Ravenwood General Hospital database," Dad 93 said coldly. "Tiffany Albright suffered 0 injuries. The cast is a prop. The doctor who signed the fake report has already had his medical license permanently revoked and is currently being interrogated by the FBI for medical fraud." Tiffany stared at the file, her hands shaking. Aye. "Stand up," Dad 3 barked, his voice echoing like thunder. Tiffany jumped, terrified, and instinctively stood up from her wheelchair, placing all her weight perfectly on her broken leg. The entire auditorium erupted into furious whispers as her lie was exposed bare for the world to see. Miss Davidson, realizing her ship was sinking rapidly, crawled forward on her hands and knees. "Mr. Pendleton." "Sir. I didn't know. I was deceived by them. I swear, Stella is a wonderful student. I was just..." "You slapped my daughter," Arthur interrupted, his voice devoid of all emotion. Miss Davidson froze. I was disciplining." Arthur didn't even look at her, he just nodded to one of the guards. "Take her, turn over the evidence of the bribes she took from Albright to the state prosecutors, ensure she gets the maximum sentence in a maximum security federal facility. She will never see the sky as a free woman again. No. Please. Stella, tell them. I'm your teacher. Miss Davidson wailed as two massive guards dragged her away by her arms, her heels scraping helplessly against the floor. I watched her go, feeling absolutely nothing but cold relief. Arthur finally turned his gaze back to Mr. Albright. The ruined man was on his knees, staring blankly at his phone, his entire life's work eradicated in less than a minute. You said you'd make her family disappear, Arthur said, walking down the steps until he was towering over Albright. I am standing right here, make me disappear. Albright burst into tears. He threw himself forward, trying to grab Arthur's shoes. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was blind. I was stupid. Please, Mr. Pendleton, give me back my company. I'll do anything. I'll apologize to her. I'll bow 100 times. You aren't worthy of bowing to her, Arthur said softly. He stepped back in disgust. You are nothing, take him out, both of them. Guards swooped in, grabbing Mr. Albright and a screaming, sobbing Tiffany. Stella. Stella, I'm sorry. I was jealous. Tiffany screamed as she was hauled away. Tell them to let us go. Please. I stood on the stage, looking down at them. I remembered the cold water hitting my face in the restroom. I remembered the flash of Tiffany's phone camera. I remembered bleeding on the floor to protect the men standing behind me. I looked Tiffany dead in the eye and spoke into the microphone, my voice steady for the first time. You brought this on yourself. The doors slammed shut behind them, cutting off their wails. The auditorium was dead silent. 2,000 students and faculty were too terrified to even breathe. Arthur turned back to me. The terrifying aura of the syndicate chairman vanished, instantly replaced by the gentle, fawning dad I had known my whole life. He walked up to the stage and carefully wiped a stray tear from my cheek with his thumb. Are you okay, sweetie? He asked, his voice thick with worry. Before I could answer, Dad 66 pushed his way forward, pulling out a first aid kit. Let me see that bruise. I told you we should have brought the orbital strike satellite online, Arthur. We should have leveled the building. She's indoors, you idiot, an orbital strike would hit her too, Dad 79 scolded, smacking the back of 60SIX's head. Stella, honey, does it hurt? Dad 93, get over here and look at her head. Suddenly, I was swarmed. 108 of the most powerful, dangerous, and wealthy men on the planet were crowding around me, fussing over a minor bruise and a slapped cheek like I had been shot. Wait, I said, holding up my hands, my head spinning. I looked at Arthur, then at the others. You aren't wanted criminals? Silence fell over the dads. They all exchanged awkward glances. Well, Dad 3 rubbed the back of his neck, the fierce warlord suddenly looking like a shy schoolboy. Technically, I am wanted in a few countries, but mostly because I overthrew their dictators. Stella, Arthur said gently, taking my hands, we lied to you. When you were left on our doorstep, we were men who lived entirely in the shadows. We thought if you knew who we really were, the enemies we had, you'd be terrified of us. We wanted you to have a normal life, so we let you think we were just low-level thugs. We didn't realize that our lie would make you carry such a heavy burden. So, I sniffled, pointing at Dad 66, you really do build nuclear submarines? Of course I do. Dad 66 said indignantly, who did you think was texting you from the bottom of the Mariana Trench last week? I looked at Dad 15, and the high-interest loans? International sovereign debt, sweetie, Dad 15 smiled warmly. I essentially own the treasury of 3 different continents. I set aside the GDP of a small European nation for your college fund, by the way. The sheer absurdity of it all hit me at once. For years, I had walked on eggshells, hiding my grades, taking part-time jobs, letting myself be bullied, all to protect my poor, struggling, criminal fathers from getting arrested by local beat cops. Meanwhile, my dads were literally the men who ran the world. A laugh bubbled up in my chest. It started small, then grew into a full, breathless laugh. Tears streamed down my face, but this time, they weren't tears of fear or humiliation. It was the absolute, dizzying relief of a terrible weight being lifted from my shoulders. Arthur smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. He pulled me into a tight, warm hug. I'm sorry we were late, Stella, he whispered into my hair, but from now on, you never have to hide again. You are Stella Pendleton, you are the daughter of the Aegis Syndicate, and if anyone ever looks at you the wrong way again, I will buy their bloodline and erase it from history. That goes for all 108 of us. Dad 3 yelled, raising a fist. The other 106 dads cheered in unison, a deafening roar that shook the auditorium once again. I buried my face in Arthur's coat, surrounded by my massive, chaotic, overpowered family. Okay, I mumbled, smiling through my tears, but no orbital strikes. No promises. Dad 66 yelled from the back. The aftermath of that day at Ravenwood High became urban legend. The Albright family vanished from high society overnight. Marcus Albright ended up working the night shift at a 24-hour laundromat on the outskirts of the city, forever burdened by the debt Dad 15 had expertly trapped him in. Tiffany was forced to transfer to a rundown public school 2 towns over. Her days of bullying permanently ended by the harsh reality of poverty. Miss Davidson was sentenced to 20 years for extortion, child endangerment, and accepting bribes. As for me, I didn't drop out, I didn't run away. I stayed at Ravenwood High for my senior year, but things were vastly different. When I walked down the halls, the waters parted, no one whispered behind my back, no one bumped my shoulder, and if anyone ever needed help with a bully, they knew exactly who to come to. On the day of my high school graduation, I stood on the stage as valedictorian. When it was time to hand out the diplomas, the principal, a very polite, very nervous new hire who had replaced the old administration, called my name. Stella Pendleton. I walked across the stage, the bright summer sun shining through the repaired skylights. As I grabbed my diploma, the back doors of the auditorium blasted open. I grinned. A fleet of black armored SUVs was parked on the lawn, and walking down the center aisle, carrying bouquets of ridiculously expensive, genetically modified, perfectly blooming roses, were 108 men in tailored suits. "That's our daughter," Dad 3 roared, his voice rattling the windows. "I funded that diploma," Dad 15 cheered, waving a checkbook. Arthur walked right up to the front row, looking at me with eyes full of overwhelming pride. He didn't say a word, but he didn't have to. I held my diploma high, no longer the timid girl who bowed to protect her family, but the undisputed princess of the shadows, ready to take on the world. I had 108 dads, and for the first time in my life, I couldn't wait to show them off.